The sun was sinking slowly behind the crimson cliffs of Arizona, spilling gold and amber across the dusty horizon. Rancher Jack Coleman rode his tired horse along the narrow path back home. His broad-brimmed hat shaded weathered eyes that had seen too many sunsets and too few smiles. Life on the ranch had made him strong but lonely. His only company was the wind that whispered through the canyon and the steady rhythm of his horse's hooves on the dry earth. He had spent the day trading supplies in the small frontier town of Dry Creek, flour, bullets, and coffee mostly. As the last light began to fade, he was eager to reach his cabin before darkness claimed the land. The air smelled of mesquite and sage, and somewhere far off, a coyote cried to the coming night. When Jack reached the ridge overlooking his ranch, he paused to admire the view that had become his quiet kingdom. Below, the open pasture rolled into the silver ribbon of a creek that cut through his land, a narrow stream fed by mountain snowmelt. It shimmered faintly in the evening light, its sound faint but constant, like a heartbeat in the wilderness. As he rode closer, something caught his ear, the soft splash of water. He frowned. There shouldn't have been anyone there. No ranch hands, no visitors, not this far from town. Instinct told him to be cautious. He dismounted silently, tying his horse to a post by the fence, and began to move toward the creek on foot. His boots made little sound against the soft earth. The closer he got, the clearer the sound became, water trickling, then a gentle motion, almost like someone moving through it. He parted the brush quietly, his hand resting on the handle of his revolver. Then he saw her. A young woman was kneeling in the shallow water, her back turned to him, dark hair cascading down her shoulders like a waterfall of night. The creek glowed around her, catching every movement, every ripple. Her skin gleamed softly under the sunset, warm bronze touched by the fading gold of daylight. She wore only the torn remains of a buckskin dress, soaked through and clinging to her form. Jack froze where he stood. He had seen beauty before, but not like this, not something so raw, so out of place in this lonely land. She moved with a grace that spoke of both strength and sorrow. But as his eyes traced the scene, he noticed something else, a deep cut across her arm, darkened with dried blood. Her shoulder bore bruises, and her movements were careful, as though every motion brought pain. She wasn't here for pleasure. She was hiding. Jack stepped back, meaning to turn away and give her privacy. But just as he did, a twig cracked under his boot. The woman's head snapped up. In an instant, she turned, eyes fierce and wild, like a cornered animal. Her hand darted to a knife lying on the rock beside her. "Don't move," she said sharply, voice trembling but deadly serious. Jack froze, his hands lifted slightly. "Easy," he said in a calm tone. "Didn't mean to startle you." "Who are you?" she demanded, her eyes narrowing. The soft flow of the creek was the only sound between them. "Name's Jack Coleman. This here's my land," he said honestly. "Didn't expect company." Her gaze flicked around as if gauging escape routes. "If it's your land, then you shouldn't be here," she said bitterly. "You didn't see me. Forget me." "I'd be glad to," he replied quietly, "if you weren't bleeding." The words hit her harder than she expected. She looked down at her arm, the blood crusted along her skin. Her breath came short. "I don't need your help," she whispered, though her body trembled with exhaustion. Jack took a careful step forward, keeping his tone gentle. "You've been running a while, haven't you?" Her eyes flared again, but this time, not with anger, with fear. "They're hunting me," she said under her breath, glancing toward the hills as if expecting riders any moment. "If they find me, I die. If you help me, you die too." Jack let out a slow breath. He had heard rumors in town, Apache raids, soldiers burning camps, innocent women caught in the middle of revenge and hatred. The frontier didn't care who was right, only who survived. "I've been on my own long enough," Jack said softly. "If someone's chasing you, you're safe here, at least for tonight." The woman's knife trembled in her hand. For a long moment, she said nothing. The only sound was the whisper of the wind through the cottonwoods. Finally, she lowered the blade, though her eyes remained cautious. "You should not trust me," she said. "My people call me Nita. It means bear." "Well, Nita," Jack said, giving a faint half-smile, "I'll take my chances." He stepped back, giving her space, and gestured toward the cabin up the hill. There's food and fire if you want it. Or you can stay here by the creek. Your choice. She studied him in silence. This tall, broad-shouldered man with sunburnt skin and tired eyes. He didn't look cruel, just lonely. But she had seen kindness turn into betrayal before. I'll stay here, she said firmly. At least until dark. Jack nodded. Fair enough. He turned to leave, but before he did, he removed his hat and dipped it briefly in the creek, filling it with cool water. Walking back, he offered it to her without a word. She hesitated, then accepted it, drinking in small, slow sips. Thank you, she murmured, voice softening. Don't mention it, he said, stepping away once more. I'll bring something to clean that wound before night falls. As he walked back toward the cabin, the first stars began to pierce the darkening sky. Jack felt a strange unease, not fear, but curiosity mixed with something deeper, something he hadn't felt in years. Behind him, Nita sat quietly by the creek, the water running past her like time itself. She didn't know if she could trust the rancher, but for the first time in days, she didn't feel the need to run. And somewhere deep in the growing night, as the coyotes howled to the moon, two lives, one hunted, one hollow, unknowingly began to weave together under the vast, indifferent sky of the American frontier. Night settled slowly over the desert plains, draping the world in shades of silver and shadow. A chill crept into the air, carried by the whispering wind that swept through the tall grass and rustled the wooden porch of Jack Coleman's cabin. Inside, the fire crackled softly, filling the single-room house with a gentle glow. Jack sat by the hearth, staring into the flames, his mind turning again and again to the sight of that wounded Apache woman by his creek. He had seen many things in his years on the frontier, blood, loss, hunger, but there had been something in her eyes that wouldn't leave his mind. Not just fear, strength, defiance, pain buried under courage. After a moment of hesitation, he stood up, grabbed a tin plate, and loaded it with cornbread and some leftover beans from supper. Then, taking a clean cloth and a bottle of whiskey, he stepped out into the cool night. The moon hung high, painting the land in soft blue light. When he reached the creek, Nita was still there, sitting near the water, her wet hair now dry and loose over her shoulders. She turned sharply as he approached, knife glinting in her hand. Easy, he said quietly, lifting the plate. I brought food. She eyed him warily for a moment, then slowly lowered the knife. Her stomach growled before she could hide it, and Jack caught the faintest flicker of embarrassment on her face. He placed the food near her and crouched a short distance away. You'll need to eat if you plan on surviving, he said. I figure you've been on the run a while. Nita took the plate slowly, sniffed the food, then began eating with small, careful bites. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but weakness. Jack sat in silence, watching the moonlight glint off the creek's surface. After a few moments, he spoke again. Who's after you, Nita? She looked up sharply, eyes narrowing. Why do you care, white man? Jack met her gaze. Maybe I don't, he said simply. But I'd like to know what kind of trouble just landed on my land. She stared at him for a long moment before sighing softly, her shoulders slumping. Soldiers, she whispered. They came to our camp 3 nights ago. Said they were looking for stolen horses. But they wanted more than that. They burned everything. Killed my brother when he tried to stop them. I ran. Her voice cracked, just once, before she clenched her jaw. Jack's expression darkened. Those men from Fort Ashland. She nodded slowly. I think so. He exhaled through his nose. They're known for being brutal. I've seen what they do to your people. Not all of them deserve the uniform they wear. Her eyes softened slightly. And yet you wear their hat, she said, nodding toward the old cavalry cap hanging from his belt. Jack gave a sad half-smile. Used to wear it, he admitted. A long time ago. Back before I saw what the orders really meant. The two sat in silence for a while, listening to the water and the call of distant owls. There was an unspoken understanding between them, two souls shaped by the cruelty of a wild land. Jack poured some whiskey onto the clean cloth and offered it. Let me see your arm. She hesitated, suspicion flickering in her eyes again. You could turn me in for money. I could, Jack said quietly. But I won't. After a long pause, she extended her injured arm. The wound looked angry and deep. Jack cleaned it carefully, trying not to cause her more pain. She didn't flinch or make a sound, though her breathing quickened when the alcohol touched her skin. "You're tough," he said, impressed. Nita's lips curved faintly. "You don't survive long among my people if you're not." When he finished, he wrapped the wound with a strip of cloth and tied it gently. "That should hold for now," he said. "You'll heal faster with rest." She glanced toward his cabin. "You want me to stay there?" He shrugged. "You can if you like. It's warmer than sleeping by the creek." Her expression hardened again. "And wake up with a rope around my neck." Jack looked straight at her. "If I wanted to harm you, Nita, I'd have done it already. But I'm not that kind of man." The conviction in his voice made her pause. Something inside her, the constant fear, the distrust, wavered for a moment. "I will stay," she said finally, her voice low. "But only for tonight." Jack nodded. "Fair enough." They walked together to the cabin, the moonlight guiding their path. Inside, she stood near the doorway, eyes scanning every corner. Old rifle on the wall, books on the shelf, a single bed by the window. Jack placed a blanket by the fire. "You can sleep there," he said. "I'll keep watch." "You don't trust me either," she said dryly. He chuckled. "Just being polite." For the first time, her lips curved into a real, if faint, smile. She lowered herself onto the blanket, exhaustion overtaking her. Jack sat in his chair by the fire, watching the flames flicker across the room. As the night deepened, her breathing slowed, steady and calm. Outside, the coyotes sang again. Jack's thoughts drifted. To the soldiers, to the lawless land beyond his fences, and to the strange woman now asleep on his floor. He knew he was inviting danger by sheltering her, but he couldn't bring himself to care. There was something about her presence, wild, proud, unbroken, that made him feel alive again after years of silence. Near dawn, he stirred the fire quietly. Nita opened her eyes, instantly alert. Her hand went to the knife she'd laid beside her. "You don't sleep much, do you?" he said with a grin. "Not when hunted," she replied, her voice soft. Jack poured her some coffee. She sipped it cautiously, her gaze thoughtful. "What will you do now?" he asked. "I don't know," she admitted. "If I go north, they'll follow. If I go back to my people, they'll find us again. Maybe," she hesitated, "maybe I'll just keep running." Jack stared into his cup. "You don't have to run forever. There's space here, plenty of it. You could stay." Her eyes lifted to his. "With you." He met her gaze steadily. "For as long as you want." For a long moment, neither spoke. The fire crackled softly, and the dawn light began to spill through the window, painting her face in gold. She looked away, uncertain, torn between instinct and trust. "You are a strange man, Jack Coleman," she said finally. "Most men see an Apache fugitive and think of bounty, not shelter." "I stopped thinking like most men a long time ago," he said simply. Outside, the first light of morning swept over the land, vast, open, and untamed. The two stood silently, bound not by words but by something deeper, something that neither of them could name yet. And as the day began, Nita realized that for the first time in many days, she wasn't afraid. She was free, if only for a little while, in the home of the lonely rancher who had seen her not as a fugitive, but as a human being. The sun was dipping low behind the red cliffs when rancher Jack Coleman rode back from town. As he neared his ranch, he heard the soft rush of water from the creek that wound behind his land. Curious, he walked closer, and froze. There, beneath the fading light, an Apache woman bathed silently, her long black hair glistening like silk in the stream. Her skin shimmered in the sunset glow, her movements calm but alert. Jack realized she was no ordinary woman. The cut on her arm and the torn buckskin clothes meant she was running from something. Jack quietly stepped back, but the woman turned, eyes sharp as an arrow. "You saw nothing," she warned, clutching her knife though her hands trembled. Jack raised his palms. "I mean no harm. You're hurt." For a moment, the forest went still. The fugitive hesitated, her breathing uneven, before lowering the blade. "If you betray me, I'll vanish before sunrise," she whispered. Jack nodded. "Then you'd better stay till you're healed." In that quiet exchange, a wounded Apache and a lonely rancher, a fragile trust began, one neither of them had expected under the crimson evening sky.